All right, this is the original content. We back. We're gonna do a quick. This is another theory that I'm working on with gamma exposure. I don't know if it means anything. It's been working really good, but I don't know if it's because I'm just getting lucky, or if it's actually the strategy or what. But here it is. I'm gonna show it to you guys. And I was explaining this to my buddy the other day at lunch, and it sounds crazy when I say it. I did this video, this Gex Outlook on Tuesday, and it just didn't make any sense at the time. I don't understand how it played out that way, and this is how it is every week. Every week I look at this gamma exposure. I don't know how to trade it because it's just so far fetched. How in the world did we know that the market was going to trade to 40.50? Right? How did we know SPX was at least going to go down to that area on Tuesday? And so we're going to kind of go through a little bit of the process here that I go through every week. And like I said, sometimes when I do this, I'm just looking at these charts. I'm just going, I just don't believe it, right? Because we're trading 4,200 on Thursday, and the Gex is saying 40.50 on Tuesday. So 2 days prior, we're already getting the Gex is telling the story of where we could potentially close. All right, so anyways, this is going to be sort of the basics on how I kind of plan my day, plan my week, and it starts with the gamma exposure charts. Now I'm pulling up the next seven. The reason I like to use XPX because SPX is because there's a daily one. There's a daily chart for that, and so it's a huge advantage. Now we can only pull up to seven right now in the Investors Haven Discord, which is right here. I'll give you guys a link in the description to join if you want to. You can just go to the bot commands, and you can see people pulling these. You can see I pulled a bunch of these SPX gamma charts for the next 7 expiries, so going all the way out until September 7th. And then I also have the quarterly one right here. So this is going to be the next 98. It's not necessarily the quarter, but it's just the next 98 days till expiration. So this is going to give you a nice picture, kind of a longer term picture. So I sort of start with this one, mainly because, this is sort of the full picture here. So and the only thing I really care about on these nowadays, when I'm just looking at this, is first thing I want to do is just find these vol triggers. I want to see where these volatility triggers are moving. And this is 41.45 has been here for a long time. This was actually 41.75, so this actually shifted down a little bit from Friday, from yesterday. But 41.55 was a vol trigger on a lot of different expiries, so that's a big level right there, 41.55. So I want to notate that, and so I'll write it down, and I'll just go through the list here. And then as I'm going through the list of SPX expiries, I want to notate big levels. Okay, I don't want to look at every little level. I'm not going to try and figure out what these little levels mean. I don't really care about these little clusters here. I just want to see this massive, especially when it's easy like this. You got basically 4,000 and 3,900. Okay, so that's what the Gex said. So I'll just write that down as well. And at this point, we're just gathering data. I just want to gather the evidence. I don't want to make any assumptions. I don't want to, I want to let the data speak for itself. Because if you start putting your bias into it, then you're going to start seeing stuff. Everybody sees the head and shoulder, but then you got the bear guy that comes and, he always sees a head and shoulder, but then you got the bull that comes in and sees an inverse head and shoulder, or some other bullish pattern. So your bias is always getting imprinted in the data you're looking at. So just gonna write the stuff down and just kind of just let it tell me what it's gonna do, because I don't know, right? I would have never guessed we traded 40.50 by Friday just by looking at a chart, and that's just what the gamma exposure was saying. So right now we're looking at 4,000, 3,900, and I just, these are the big levels sticking out. I'm not going to worry about this yet. If I see this get huge, right, it starts growing, and these start shrinking, well then, yeah, we'll start thinking about 4,300, or maybe some of these upper levels in the call area. But as of right now, 4,000 is going to be my next main level, so I'm just going to focus on that right now. I'm just gonna say, Gex says 4,000. It doesn't mean it goes to 4,000 tomorrow. It just means, in the next 98 days, the market right now has gamma exposure to the downside at 4,000. That's the largest level. Okay, so that's just what it means. All right, so here's Monday's picture. So we got a huge level here, 40.80. And our vol trigger is 41.30. So I'm just going to write that down, 41.30, 40.80. That's the only thing sticking out. All right, then we're going to go to the next chart. So August 30th, I'm going to write 8.30. And I'm just writing this down on a little notepad here, 40.60. And then our vol trigger is 41.10. Now these are going to change probably on Monday when open interest comes out. And so this is the closing one. So I'll write this down as sort of just the closing figures for the week, right? This is a weekly closing picture. So everybody always thinks, the weekly close is so important. Well, what about the weekly close in the gamma exposure chart? What about your weekly close in your vol trigger? Those are going to be more important than your daily. And this was the Jackson Hole close too, so a little bit more importance than your average day, right? When J Powell basically killed the market, killed 2 weeks worth of gains in a single day, something like that. Anyways, all right, so moving on. So we're just going to keep going through this 831. We got a little bit of positive gamma here into the end of the month, so that is interesting, right? 4100. So we got 4090, which was a huge level on Friday, and then 4100 showing up here as the big level. So end of month, 4100, end of month flows, those type of things are going to come into play. Not a lot, not a lot of huge levels down here. We're also looking at the scale here, minus 4 million into basically, what is that going to be, Tuesday. And so we're looking at Wednesday here being positive. Okay, so that's interesting. 40.60 going to be traded on what's that going to be? So 40.60 going to be traded on Tuesday, and we got 40.80 going to be traded on Monday. So and I'm going to go through another thing too to kind of tell you if you can expect pins or not. So the pinning thing too, those happen a lot within a certain period of time in between the OPEXs, the options expirations. So I'm going to show you a little calendar that I use that helps me know, hey, look, am I looking for pins or am I looking for, directional plays? Because if I'm looking for pins, I'm just going to start playing iron condors because I already know where the market's going to end up. But if I don't know where the market's going to be, then I'm going to be looking for people to get squeezed, essentially, and for the market to get a little bit more directional, a little bit more breakouts, those kind of things. So anyways, moving on. All right, so now we got the 1st of September. That's 41.30. And our big level is basically this 4100 still, okay? So now we're getting a little bit of a pattern here. We got 4,000 kind of sticking out there on a couple of these, right? 4,000, there's 4,000 again, so we'll just kind of keep that in mind. We got 4,000 already, basically for the total GEX-N, right? So GEX-N at 4,000. This is the net GEX for 98 days. So that one's already sticking out, and we're seeing it kind of play out in these levels. So there's the second. So 9/2. September seasonally is one of the worst months for the market. So this has been one of the worst years for the market in I think 50 years or something. I saw some crazy stat today. Don't quote me on that, but it was in decades. It's been one of the worst years. And then you got one of the worst months coming up. And I think that the actual tightening, the actual stopping of mortgage-backed securities actually starts happening soon. So it's all kind of coalescing into, it's all speaking to me like just bearish, right? I mean, don't fight the Fed. You heard what J Powell just said. They're stopping mortgage-backed securities. BlackRock was halting buying of homes, which they've been doing for a year or two now. And so it's all kind of that's in the back of my head as I'm looking at these levels, like, okay, well, this is all lining up. The weight of the evidence is lining up for lower prices. Doesn't mean it happens right away. It just means okay, I'm just going to be expecting a bearish type of trading patterns into, until these pictures start to shift, until I start seeing some changes here. A little bit of positive gamma there on September 2nd, but you're looking at September 2nd being probably the day we actually hit That's Friday. So that's going to be an important day too. That's another thing that I've noticed is that the Fridays are important as well. Really important. Want to keep a really good eye on those Fridays because that's going to be your end of week expiration. And so that basically is just telling me that 4,000 is trading by Friday. You know, as long as we're underneath these vol triggers and these pictures continue to be the same. So we got Friday. So I'm gonna move this one over here because these are my priorities here. This total GAXN and then my Friday is gonna be important too. And then so let's see, that's Friday. That's gonna be September 2nd. And then we skip over to September 6th, right? Are we missing the 5th? Is that Labor Day or Memorial Day? I never know. September 5th. Sorry for my holiday. So this is important. Labor Day. Okay. So yeah, it is Labor Day. So Labor Day. So right, we get a long weekend. So there you go. So there's a nice little setup into a long weekend, right? So you got OPEX, you know, just a normal OPEX, weekly OPEX for 4,000. That's basically what it's showing into a long weekend. So keep that in mind. So I'll make a note onto my little notepad into long weekend. So Labor Day. And so throughout this whole process, I'm not making any assumptions into anything. I'm just writing down the facts. What are the facts? And then we'll just start making some conclusions here, start drawing some conclusion of what we think might happen. 41.55 into the 7th or into the 6th. That was a huge level on Friday as well. And then again, you know, we saw 4,000. This one is actually showing 40.10. Okay, there's a little bit of a confluence down around that 4,000 area. But that's kind of interesting. So a lot of that gamma exposure is gone by Tuesday after Labor Day. So start seeing the 39.25 pop up, but it's still not the biggest level yet. I'm sure this will change. So this is where we go through this whole process again at 6 a.m. Central. When that OI updates, I'll go through this whole process again and compare it to what I'm looking at now. And then we'll see if there's any data that lines up. Okay, look at that, gamma exposure back up again. And I'm going to explain, this kind of lines up with what I'm thinking happens into with those time periods, you know, the calendar of what happens in between these OPEXs. I'm going to show you that in a minute. So the 9.7, I'm just writing down 9.7, our vol trigger 4160. Okay, and then we got 4100 showing up. So you know, if we look at the picture here, it's showing 4,000 total for the next 98 days. You do have some positive gamma exposure into the end of September here at 4,000. So that again lines up with what I'm thinking is going to end up happening as we probably bottom at 4,000. Maybe 39.25 as sort of like an excess low, but I'm not gonna play for that because that's more of this is going to be the high probability play, right? Playing for 4,000. So that's going to be Friday. So we're gonna kind of work backwards, looking at 9.2, and we're gonna keep that in context. So we got the 98 days in context, and then we got our Friday in context, and then we're gonna play these dailies all the way into those days, and with these as sort of our guides. So we got 40.80, and so we're looking here. Do we see this 40.80 popping up here? So 40.80 is a wall. I don't really consider these much, but I mean, if we see a wall and a GEX, you know, high node here, big node, then I'm definitely going to be thinking that's going to be an important level. So basically, coming up on Monday, you know, I'm thinking 40.80 is definitely going to be a level to trade underneath this vol trigger of 41.30. Okay, and then we got the similar, so we got 40.80 on Monday, and then we got 40.60 on Tuesday. Okay, so Monday and Tuesday, we're looking to trade 40.80, 40.60 on SPX, most likely. And that's sort of a downtrend, right? So you got 40.80, we closed 40.43. So I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, since we closed 40.40, on the ES, I would not be surprised if we ended up opening around these levels here and sort of trading here for a little while as they hedge this gamma exposure away. And as that gets hedged, and as the day kind of wears on, we're likely to see the trade back into that 40-60. And these levels are sort of, in my opinion, in this juncture in between this apex. Let me show you what I mean before I keep going. You guys can go to my Discord and look at the pinned messages to find this, but there is a chart in here. There you go. So where we are in the Vanna and Charm flows between the apexes. So end of month, okay, so that's sort of where we're at. We're sitting here at the end of the month. Vanna and Charm are going to start to come back. And what happens with the Vanna and Charm start to come back is Vanna represents a volatility expansion and contraction. And then Charm is, basically the time effect on these options. So it's really what they are is volatility's effect on the expected ranges and the Charm effect on the expected ranges. So those probabilities, as time wears on or as volatility goes up or down, it's going to have an effect on those ranges. It's going to have effect on the gamma exposures. Okay, so it's all just kind of like this big, chess game in a way. But I use this time period just to know, okay, we got Vanna and Charm coming back into OPEX. Okay, so OPEX, usually being like the third, somewhere around here, I'm guessing, in September. And so that lines up with, maybe a 4,000, we trade into 4,000 into next week, and then we start kind of climbing back up again as those flows start coming back in, as Vanna starts coming back in. Now, this is all going to depend on what the VIX is doing. So, and I'll bring that into the picture too here in just a minute. So we got to look at the VIX charts as well. This is just the SPX outlook. And then we'll look at VIX and kind of see what people are expecting to happen with the VIX. Okay, so then, this is what I'll do. So I'll go through all of this. I'm not going to spend too much more time on that. But now what I'll do is I'll actually go into the chart, into my charts here. And we will just map this out. So I'll go into, let's see here, main, we'll go to, and I just use my ES futures because I don't really want to mess around with, I'm trading futures, so why put it on SPX anyways? You can, but if you're going to trade SPX, you might as well. And so then I'll mark these out. So we'll just start with the GEXN for, and obviously if you get the picture already, you don't have to watch me mark these, but so this is our big pivot level right here. This is the, and I'm just going to do a couple just to show you. So then I'll just mark this as GEXN. So I know this is the 98-day, that's this vol trigger here. And I'll go mark each vol trigger for each expiration. So then we'll go for 829, which is their 4130. Okay, and I'll just put a 1 because that's just my next expiration, and so on and so forth. So 4110, and these are the only levels I want on here. I only want to know where these vol triggers are at, because then I'll know where to trade and where not to trade. I don't want to trade in the cluster here, or if I am, I'm just going to be trading, level to level. But I don't really want to be trading in the cluster if I can help it, because we got a couple confluences here. Like this one is ending up being a couple expirations. So 4130, kind of a big level. If it's more than one expiration, then it's going to be a bigger level. 4145, huge, because that's also. So this one is our GEXN and our 9.2. So 4145, massive level, because it's next week's weekly expiration, and it's our 98 days to expiration. So it's our basically our quarterly volatility trigger. And so we got 4155, which was sort of my bear trigger on Friday. That one is after. That one is going to be September 6th. And then you got your 4160 right above it. So here's how I would look at this picture here. So this is the next 7 volatility triggers sitting in here. And then we got our huge levels, right? Then we got our big level at 4,000, which is sort of our magnet at this point. I'm just making it a different color. It doesn't really matter. And then we got a couple other levels that showed up, 4,100, being a level, just these big gamma levels. We got 4080, which was a big gamma level, and 4060, right? Because we already went through everything, and we saw the big levels. And see, we traded all of those. So this picture can change on Monday. So at 6 a.m. I'll come in here and just update all of these. And then so I know where the volatility triggers are, and I know where the big levels are. And so you can basically say at this point, if we're under this 4090, we're going to 4,000, because there's no other volatility trigger here. The volatility trigger, if you're above it, is going to act as support, and if you're below it, it's acting. Basically the market is trending in that direction. So if the market is down, that means the market makers are basically going with the market, and that is in this window. That's what I mean by knowing what window you're in. When you're in this window, when Vanna and Charm aren't really having an effect, the market is a lot looser. The VIX is kind of unchained. It's kind of able to move a little bit. The market's going to be really, really volatile. And if you know where the volatility triggers are and these clusters of volatility triggers are, you're going to know when the market is in a really bearish mode and when it's in really bullish mode, or it's when it's being supported. So right now, in this window here, where we're in the end of the month, this is an extremely, extremely strong window of weakness. You can see it here. This is where we're at. Window of weakness. These things are on holiday. This is going to come from Jam Carson on Twitter. He's the guy that kind of brought all this up, but we're right after the OPEX. That was week 4. So you saw we were very bearish this week. It was pretty much bearish in totality. There was a lot of bullish moves. So that doesn't mean that we don't go up any of these moments. That's why I say we're probably going to trade up on Sunday, to probably trade back up to this 4080, maybe even 4100 for the cash open on Monday, and then trade there for a little bit. That's my guess, is we'll probably see a bounce there. But into 4090, if this 4090 test holds, then you're probably going to see more downside into next week, 4060, and then there's just nothing to 4,000. Look where that lines up with. If you're just a moving average type of character and you're just trading this 50-day, look where that lines up, right on the 50-day. So fascinating how this all plays out. And then we're going to look at the VIX. So we don't stop there with just the SPX. We're going to keep our volatility picture in mind as well. I hear my kids in the background. Of course, they're yelling now at the end of the video. So VIX, very different picture from what I was looking at a few weeks ago. So right now, at least from what I can tell, as long as we're trading above 24 on VIX, you're going to start to sort of see a trend into this 30. Now, I don't see a lot of gamma exposure here for this coming up week, so we're going to keep an eye on this. But into the end of the month, there's not a lot of gamma sort of pulling this up into 30. So I'm not quite sure we're going to get there from this picture. But we'll see what the open interest looks like on Monday, because Friday probably will change this picture a lot. I bet you there's a lot of gamma exposure built into that 30. So as long as we're above this fall trigger here and we're below this 4090, I would say you're in a situation where the market's going to be very, very volatile to the downside. You're going to, in my opinion, and when I'm trading futures at this point, I'm only going to be looking for bearish setups, because your bullish setups, if you're trying to take a risk reward, you're going to have a lot bigger stop loss and your risk reward is going to be a lot smaller because of that, because the downside moves are going to be a lot bigger. So this basically just, all of this put together just gives you a context to know, okay, look, all I'm going to be looking for under 4090 is bearish setups. All I want to be doing is shorting the rips. And then once we get above 4090, 4010, in this little area, it's going to be chopped, right? I mean, it's going to be chopped up. You're going to have market makers, hedging for, again, an SPX expiry 7 days out above 4090, but then you're going to have a market maker selling anything for an SPX expiry 3 days out for 4110. That's what creates that chop zone here. So we see the chop zone, and then we see our magnet. We even had down to 3,900, didn't we, on that GEXN? So that's the picture right there, just based on the closing weekly GEXN charts. And we have our VIX picture as well, and then we have our window of weakness, window of strength. Right now we're in the window of weakness. It all lines up, and into September, which is seasonally the worst month of the year for the market, into one of the worst years. I don't know what's going to happen, guys, but all that right there is just the evidence. So I don't know what's going to happen. 3,900, is it going to come? I don't know. I know 4,000 is looking really, really very possible at this point. So you can even do other things, like some people will throw a volume profile on here and sort of see where the points of the controls are and stuff like that, and the virgin points of controls and all that stuff. You can do that too. So a lot of different ways you can use this. Hopefully this helps you. And if you like this, make sure to let me know, leave a comment, and we'll see you next time. Peace.